Hi guys! Today is a spontaneous leave session. I have a day off and I decided to come back here because we stopped on our 7 questions previously on the leave session, and I want to follow along with another common questions that usually any beginner or intermediate level can have about watercolors, watercolor paper, and so on and so forth. This time I haven't prepared anything to paint with you. It will be more an explaining session where I will read the question and later will explain you. Somewhere we will have to do some swatches, we will have to create some colors, to mix up colors. I will explain everything about this. And let's give start with the first question. The first question is, what is the difference between transparent and opaque watercolors? Usually we say that we have opaque medium and we have transparent medium. Within the opaque mediums, the most traditional ones are oil, acrylics, and gouache or tempera. And within the transparent mediums, it is watercolors. But it is true that within watercolors we also have some transparent colors and we have some opaque colors. And usually when we have the watercolor palette, we have this source with colors and with different signs that we have here. If I would take, for example, my palette of 36 pens in watercolors of White Nights, then we can see that opaque paints are shared with a square that it filled in with color. And for example, all the colors that have a filled square will be opaque colors. And how it looks. Usually opaque colors are used for creating specific details by the end of the work. That usually these colors cover over the transparency of the watercolors. If we want to create some opaque objects, then we can use these colors. Usually we don't use too many opaque colors because if we use, for example, opaque colors first and then we want to use transparent colors, then it will be really difficult to undo the mistake or to undo things. And let me share with you how it looks, the opaque colors. For example, in my palette we have cadmium yellow medium as an opaque color. And when we apply, if we take less water and more color, we can see that the color is very strong. For example, this yellow medium. In yellow it is not clearly seen because it is light color, but for example, let me take English red. English red is an opaque color too. Hi Lumi, hola! For example, we have English red, that is an opaque color. As well, we have cadmium red color. So let me share the video and later on I will change the camera back. I will share it in an easy way for you to see. And for example, I mentioned we have cadmium yellow medium, we have English red, we have cadmium red. For example, when we take less water and more color, the behind part or the paper, the transparency of the paper is not seen. Another colors within the opaque colors, what we have is chromium oxide. This color is opaque too. To see why these colors are opaque, we can share, I will share this, for example, with simple yellow. For example, here we have cadmium yellow medium, and here below I will use simple yellow. On yellows it is more difficult to see, but for example here the color covers the previous layer. Here the color is not covering. For example, if I would have something drawn, then this would transparent. On yellows it's difficult to see when it is not on a specific work. We took English red. Let me take some other color, for example, Meadow Lake red, because it is, so we see that the color is more transparent. We see the surface of the paper that it is white. For example, here it is not seen. And I took a pretty strong color in red. And if compared this one, let me take a Titian red. Or a ruby color. Let me take ruby color because Titian red is already an orange color. You see the transparency? The paper stays white. We see the paper. Let me take Titian red as well. And you can see these colors are transparent and this color is considered opaque. The color when it is too dark or when it covers, usually it is an opaque color. On my palette I actually have only these four opaque colors, but later on we have semi-transparent paints. What does it mean? When it is a semi-transparent paint, it means that the transparency is something in between. If these colors cover everything and we don't see what is behind, these colors leave space and we can see what it is behind these colors. Then on the other colors, for example, cadmium lemon, it is semi-transparent. It means that it covers pretty well. It is also a semi-opaque color, but if we take with more water, it will be more transparent medium. This is the question about opaque colors and transparent colors. And let's move on with the second question. How do I control the amount of water in my watercolor painting? It really depends on what do you want to paint. For example, if you are working with a losing effect, then sincerely there you have to learn with practice, because sometimes you need to have the paper covered fully with water, sometimes you need less water to create specific styles. For example, now I have these works in front of me. This is what, for example, this work I worked with loose effect, and obviously to get different shades from cool colors to warm colors, it is easier to work with wet on wet technique, and usually it is less it is more difficult to achieve for a beginner these transitions, because sometimes you just add more water. One of the tricks that I use when working with wet on wet technique is usually I wet the paper and I leave this paper to dry a while, so or the paper to take more this color, this water, and that when you apply that the colors are not splashing all over, but that stay more strongly on it. If considering that you are working with wet on dry, I advise you, for example, as I usually do, I take my paintbrush and I remove the excess of water with my paper, with a tissue, with kitchen towel, whatever you have. And in this way you will have more color and less water. Or for example, as I was doing always, I was just removing the excess of water with my fingers. And in this way you can create different colors and to control more the water. It is up to you how you decide to take, but it is just a way of practicing, and more you practice, the easier it will come, and the easier you will understand how to follow along. I should then show you, for example, I really advise you to watch my videos, because a lot of times I control the color on my paper with a tissue. I remove the excess and working in this way. Usually with the fingers and I use like this mainly when I want to lift up the color, not when I want to paint anything. Let's move on with another question. How do I preserve and protect my watercolors paintings? Usually there is a fixative that you can add on your paper, but this fixative won't help you from fading away the colors, because watercolors, even if those are the highest quality, if the paper is in the sunshine, it will fade away. So it will happen, you want it or not. And if you want to protect, it is obviously the best to protect these in a dark room. Usually in the museums we see that watercolors are shown in a very dark room and in a very specific place where the sunshine is not coming on. For example, in my case, this room is it has a lot of light, but it is not as much. And one of the things that I do, I just apply I just leave those in this way. But it is important that the most important protection is that the sunshine is not getting straight on our painting. It is important that even if you have in the room a lot of light, that it is not getting straight to the work. But of course the most easy way is just to hold those in a very dark room if you want to preserve those for centuries, obviously. At least for 5-10 years it will stay like this without any problem and without fading away. Can I use watercolor paints on other surfaces besides paper? Yes. We can use watercolors on canvas, and we can use watercolors on cotton, or on the, for example, I don't know, on some skirts, whatever you wish, on materials, let's say. But it will be just really difficult to paint on it. You have to practice a lot on paper first and then to move on the other. And as well, if considering mixed paper, for example, I usually advise to use watercolor paper, but you can also use mixed paper, it will also work. Next question. How do I choose the right brushes for watercolor paintings? I always say that the Squirrel or Marta Kolinsky here is the best one for paintbrushes. Check out, I have the full video with all the paintbrushes that I really advise to use in watercolors. But you obviously can use synthetics. I have prepared several paintbrushes that I use, and that you can see if anything is working for you. For example, for wetting paper, I usually use a flat big paintbrush, and it is usually synthetics that you can cover the water on all the surface of the paper. And then within the big paintbrushes, I use the Squirrel. I have Paul Rubens number 6. It is full Squirrel paintbrush. It is very smooth. It creates really interesting lines. It is great to cover bigger surfaces with color, and it holds very well the water and the color. And for smaller works, I use the Da Vinci number 0 Petit Gris Pure. It is a Squirrel as well, and I use this for smaller size, but actually the both are working in the same way. The difference is the size. And I also have Marta Kolinsky for a smaller size. The difference between Squirrel and Marta Kolinsky is that Marta Kolinsky is stronger and you can firmly, and you can create more details with it. And for the details, I always use synthetics. The synthetics is pretty strong as a paintbrush, and it is not moving around with colors. It works really well. Another paintbrushes that I have one from Japan, that it is working well as a Squirrel. And then I have another Da Vinci bigger. For example, if I want to work with more color and less water, I use this synthetics. It is number 8. Now, differences between the Squirrel, Marta Kolinsky, and synthetics. The Squirrel usually holds more water and more watercolor on it. and it is easier to work on bigger surfaces, and it is easier to work with bigger objects, smaller objects, with details, and so on. Marta Kolinsky is great for working the effects that you need a smooth layer paintbrush, and the effects that you need to work with some details, some specific strong details. And the synthetic is great when you want to use more color and less water. It holds less water than a squirrel. Nowadays, if you don't want to use natural hair paintbrushes, what you can do, you can buy these synthetics that are very similar to squirrel. Nowadays, there are a lot of good producers like Skoda, like Da Vinci, who create the paintbrushes that are not squirrel but imitate the squirrel. Okay, moving on. How can I paint realistic landscapes or portraits with watercolors? First, you should learn a lot to draw, because realistic works requires a precise drawing. One of the techniques that you can use if you are a beginner and don't have any practice, or you practice just a little, is to have the reference, to split the reference into smaller squares, and later these squares you just copy from your reference to the paper. In this way, it will be the most realistic way. If you want to play with colors and to copy the colors, then here you should have more practice, because you should understand and learn how to mix colors to get the same color as you have on the reference. Here it is more about the practice. And last question for today. What are some advanced watercolors techniques I can learn to improve my skills? I have prepared a really nice video. I will post it later. And I prepared different techniques that you can use in watercolors. This is a really nice tutorial. I will really advise you to follow along with this video that will appear. Here I share a lot about these different techniques that we can use and effects that we can get. Okay. So I saw that somebody don't know the colors that we are using. I'm using the watercolor palette White Nights. Obviously the colors and the names of the colors are different to other producers, other companies and other brands. So you should see your brands. Usually, I just mentioned how it is usually shown, for example. You don't only have to see the colors, but you also need to watch all the smaller details that each color has and the explanation of it, because in this way you will understand if the color is granulating, if the color is opaque, if the color is transparent, if the color is fading away really quick. So there are a lot of information on the palette that you have. My colors are just as a reference to answer the questions. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. On the next video I will share with you maybe a painting, and I will be explaining as well I will be answering as well the questions, the common questions in watercolors. But for now, thank you for watching. Like this video once it's uploading, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you and bye!